I'd also like to thank somebody else before I do get into my remarks, and that is the press. Now, it's not Robin or Ann or Joe or anybody in the back of the room. It's nobody here, actually. As Chris did say, I did buy a new house. My wife and I bought a new house in Hastings, Nebraska, and we have a mortgage. And you wouldn't believe who's paying for that mortgage. My wife, as you know, as Chris alluded to, is on TV quite a bit. She's on Fox News, believe it or not. She's the Democrat on Fox News. She and Alan Combs. So I'm here to say thank you to Shepard Smith, to say thank you to Sean Hannity, to say thank you to John Gibson for paying for my mortgage. I'll tell you what, that is the absolute best thing that Fox News, I think, has ever done. So thank you to all of you for allowing us to have that. Those of us here tonight come from different cities and different walks of life. But we all share something in common. Just like the folks back in Hastings where I lived, in Dunning where I lived, we're all from the heartland. We're all heirs of the first pioneers. We've come from a long line of Americans who faced big challenges before and overcome them. It took an uncommon courage for those early settlers to leave all they knew behind, to leave the comforts of home for an ocean journey across the Atlantic. It took still more courage and more independence to arrive in America only to head out west into the unknown. Now, the first pioneers came here because they couldn't get ahead back home. Carrying nothing more than hope in their hearts, they set out for a better life. They took control of their destinies. And after they made their hard journey overland, after they reached the place they could finally call home, that's when the real challenge began. The challenge of building a new life in a distant land. But to meet that challenge, that independent spirit that had carried them so far could not by itself carry them any further. No, when they reached that new place, it wasn't just their independent spirit. It was their community spirit. Once they got here, that's what it was. That dual responsibility of community and individual spirit that made those communities strong. That's what my ancestors and yours have left behind. That's what they've left us. Strong communities and an independent spirit. When our country faced the dual challenge of rising population and economic development, a country lawyer with fresh ideas signed the Homestead Act and gave new opportunities to all Americans to build a new life out west. When the heartland risked falling behind in an era of industrialization, innovative leaders led the charge for rural electrification and gave my grandparents the means to compete in their modern world. When America strained under a housing crisis, a former Army officer rose and pledged to help 5 million people who were in need, many of whom were returning soldiers from World War II. Again, the man we honor tonight. Each generation of pioneers has met the challenges of its day. And so will we. As a new father, I carry the burden of knowing that my choices today about each of those challenges, choices that leave too much debt on her shoulders, too many uninsured that she will need to care for, too many undereducated that she will need to employ, too many unemployed that she will need to support, too many dangers, both foreign and environmental, that she will need to confront. That those choices deeply impact the promise of tomorrow. The reason for all this is for too long we, as a country, have talked about rights without talking about duties. For too long we've talked about benefits without talking about burdens. For too long, we as a country have not talked about obligations and sacrifice. But this is a new year. And with new year comes new hope. What we need to tell ourselves as we embark on this new year and this new election is that the time for receiving something for nothing has come to an end. The fact of the matter is, nothing worth doing ever was easy. I learned that firsthand last year when I ran for Congress. Actually, in all truth, a farmer told it to me best. He was an older man. He came up to me and we were talking about planting corn, and I said, well, how hard is it going to be this year with rising fuel prices, rising corn costs? And he looked at me and he said, it's going to be hard. Not as hard as running as a Democrat out here, though. He had a point, as I found out. Now, we were not unsuccessful last year. Not by the long shot that was indeed my candidacy. Politically, I did lose. I admit that, as Chris has reminded everybody. Thank you very much, Chris. I lost by 10,321 votes. Not that I counted at all. I promise you, I didn't count all 10,321 votes. Our approach in all of this needs to be simple. It boils down to this. We want to build a better Nebraska. And a better Nebraska is a Nebraska where all of us can get ahead. But our challenges are going to be hard. We face a global threat of extremism and division, and we face it alone with a damaged reputation in the world. We face the dual challenge of skyrocketing debt and growing budget deficits, rising trade imbalances, and falling wages. Sadly, what this means for average Americans is that last year more people filed for bankruptcy than graduated from college.